Hello, it's Sunday, September 3rd, 2017, and as of this recording, I'm still depressed, but I'm not dead. Hey everybody, welcome back and thanks for downloading the show to listen to. This episode is an interview I did with Matt Pappas from over at survivingmypast.net. He is a survivor of abuse as a child. He tells a little bit about his story, about his blog, his podcast, his future goals in the mental health community. It's a great interview. Matt is the kind of guy that I wish that I strive to be more like. He is just offering up a phenomenal amount of information and content for sufferers of mental illnesses. And I think you're going to really enjoy listening to him. I know I enjoyed having a conversation with him. So before I get to that, let me remind you how you can get a hold of me, jamoalki@gmail.com, facebook.com/jamoalki, @jamoalki, www.jamoalki.info. That's JAMOALKI. Or you can send me a text at 248-648-1419. And let's get right to it. All right, so here I am with Matt Pappas. He is a podcaster, website extraordinaire. He is let's see. So you've got your website, survivingmypast.net. You've done a ton of work on your website. There's like a Herculean amount of effort put into that and dedication for resources for folks who are dealing with... Well, I'm going to let you explain it. So without any further ado, Matt Pappas, thanks for joining me on the show. If you don't mind, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to my listeners?
Yeah, dude. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So, yeah, my name is Matt, and I run survivingmypast.net. That is a blog that I started in February 2016, and it was originally just a place where I was just going to share my story. I was going to write some posts and tell some stories about my journey and my experiences as a survivor of childhood trauma. And so, it started out just originally as like a therapy blog, so to speak, where it's just my journal, my thoughts. Yeah. I wasn't quite sure anybody would ever read it or, anybody would really care to read it. So once I launched it, then I started writing, and I was writing a lot.
Right, yeah. You are a writer.
Yeah, I am. And especially early on when I first launched it, I was writing like four posts a week, sometimes 5. And it just kind of started to take off because I wrote it, and then shortly after that I created a Twitter account. Mm-hmm. I started looking for other people who were writing about the same stuff I was, and I was searching the mental health hashtag and the anxiety hashtag and things like that. And I started following people and tweeting out my articles and my stories, and people started following me back, and it kind of just really snowballed from there to the point where, I started to gain a following. I started connecting with all kinds, just countless amazing people. Yeah. Other survivors and, coaches and clinicians and authors and advocates and people who just want to share their story and read other people's stories and people who want to cheer you on. So Surviving My Past it started out as my life with dissociation, anxiety, and PTSD as a survivor of childhood trauma. And so that's kind of the basis of it. That was the original tagline and everything. Mm-hmm. And since then, now it's really a place where, not only is it my story, it's other stories from other survivors all over the world who write about their experiences. It's weekly live videos on Periscope and YouTube.
Yeah, where we work some of those.
Yeah. Where we work through anxiety, and the skills to beat anxiety and understanding the lies and the tricks that anxiety uses to get a hold of you. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's also the podcast where I interview and chat with a lot of therapists, coaches, advocates, authors, everyday survivors, just like you and me. People who are just everyday people who want to share their story of some type of, something traumatic that happened to them as a child or during their life, or some type of struggle that they endured and, were able to overcome or are just starting to learn how to overcome. So it's really a place of safety, of healing, of advocacy, of being able to share your story. And, it's really turned into something that, I kind of always thought that maybe it could be, but never really believed that it would be until it actually did. So how about that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was listening to you talk there, and, I've explored your blog a little bit and throughout your website. I've seen a couple of your videos. But with me, I'm not a survivor like you. I've, run of the mill, we'll call it depression. And my attention span isn't what it used to be. So I haven't really gone through your website that much, but I am blown away by the amount of, well, just the scope of what you have on your website. I think of sites like Sick Not Weak, and The Mighty. You've seen The Mighty, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean you're on par with those guys with the amount of content that you have running through your site. That's amazing. You are the guy that I wish I could be if I had the energy and focus.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. That means a lot. And yeah, I've interacted with the Sick Not Weak staff, and I have my story posted on there. I have my story posted on other sites like Stigma Fighters and many other great sites like that. And of course, as you mentioned, The Mighty is a huge one. And yeah, it's really just, as I said, it's really not, it didn't start out with the intention of blowing up the way that it has in such a good way. But once you start sharing your story and you start to overcome the shame of whatever's haunted you in the past,
right?
It opens up a whole world of, writing or poetry or blogging or podcasting, like whatever it is you want to do to help yourself, to help others. I mean, it opens up so many things, and, a world of healing and a world of support that's out there that, for anybody who deals with, like you said, depression or anxiety, childhood trauma, whatever it is, there's a world of support out there that's just waiting that, once you see it, you're like, man, where have I been all this time to see that there's just these countless people, like hundreds, thousands of people all over the place, all over the world, millions of people, really, who are struggling with something in their life, and when they start to talk about it, they get their story out there, they start to meet other people, they realize they aren't alone, and they realize that there's hope. And man, that's just kind of where Surviving My Past is all about. It's embracing hope for trauma recovery and anxiety, PTSD, depression, mental health advocacy, all that type of good stuff.
Right. Yeah. And I'm just thinking about the number of voices you have going through your site. And the goal of my podcast as it is now is just to be a voice out there for folks with depression. And it's amazing to me how many emails I get, or on Twitter or Facebook, and they just say, like, geez, you said exactly what I've been thinking, and I didn't know I was thinking it.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate, I don't want to say compliment, but the ultimate validation of what you're doing is helping people when you get emails or DMs or something from somebody saying, you're reading my mind. This is how I feel. I can't believe somebody knows what I'm going through. I mean, like I said, whether it's depression, it's anxiety, whatever it is, people are struggling out there. And when they see somebody taking a stand and reaching out and, talking about it and not being ashamed and all, not staying silent. I mean, it has a ripple effect, and, you help one person and that person helps somebody else. And it's really what it's all about with this whole work that we're doing.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff when just seeing reactions that I get from folks. So if you don't mind, could you get into a little bit about your, what you're diagnosed with? Are you comfortable sharing that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's all over my website anyway, so it's not a big deal. I have PTSD and CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And anxiety. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you explain the difference between those?
Well, yeah. Essentially PTSD, of course, is post-traumatic stress disorder. And generally the difference between the two is PTSD generally is associated with a single event, single act, of something that happened perhaps one time. And honestly, it could be anything. It could be from some type of military trauma, natural disasters, could be something, as far as abuse is related, like anything where PTSD generally is associated with a single event versus complex PTSD, which is experiencing traumatic events over a long period of time repeatedly. For example, again, where, perhaps military personnel who have been in, multiple tours overseas, somebody who's been, has had to experience multiple natural disasters, somebody who's experienced multiple types of childhood trauma or domestic abuse, any types of those things where there was a traumatic event in your life, or events, is really what, kind of PTSD is really how it manifests itself. I mean, that's like a really, kind of shortened, description of it, but essentially PTSD is generally considered a one-time event versus complex, which is over, multiple times over a long period of time.
Okay. Are the effects of those or the symptoms of those, are they distinct from each other, or are they
a lot of them pretty much overlap, depending on the severity of it. And, if you've been able to get help and seek professional help, if you've been able to work through it, there are a lot of overlapping types of symptoms, isolation, depression, flashbacks, feeling triggered about certain things. It really, everybody handles it differently, but it's really just, a lot of the symptoms do overlap, but the severity of them tends to be, is where the difference often lies. I mean, we could get into a whole discussion about it, but, it's really, I didn't know that I had PTSD, and I had no idea what CPTSD was for a long time. I mean, when I first got diagnosed, like as I said, I have anxiety. I suffer from depression. Obviously, I said PTSD and dissociation,
right,
which is a dissociative type of disorder. But when I first started to seek out help from a professional therapist years ago, and she said that you have PTSD, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, that's only for military people. Like, that's how I thought about it. And that's what a lot of people do think, is that, only men and women who have served in the military and seen active duty can have PTSD, which is so far from the truth. It's not even funny. I mean, obviously, those who have been in active service roles can certainly have PTSD, and oftentimes do. But of course, it goes well beyond that for survivors of childhood trauma, domestic abuse, natural disasters, all kinds of things. So, like I said, once I really started exploring what PTSD is and what CPTSD is, and what CPTSD is, and like all the things, most of the symptoms, that would make up a diagnosis I had and already had and didn't even know it.
Wow.
So it was kind of I don't know if it was validating, or for lack of a better term, to really understand that, okay, I've got something that I can call the way that I've been feeling for years and years and years. I mean, I suppressed the childhood trauma of being sexually abused as a child when I was between 5 and 10. I suppressed that for about 30 years.
Wow.
Didn't talk about it much, hardly ever thought about it. Didn't understand that it was having a profound effect on my life in every single way: relationships, financial, career, friendships, family. Everything was, affected by this childhood trauma, and, other types of things that I had endured, such as severe bullying in school, and a caregiver with narcissistic tendencies. Like, all these things were just snowballing and causing so many problems in my life, but I wasn't able to tie it all together until I really started to educate myself. I started, talking with a professional to understand what was going on and why I was feeling the way I was feeling and what's happening. And, once I was able to start putting some pieces together of the puzzle, I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense. And now I understand this. And then once you start to understand what it is you're feeling and why you've been feeling it, then that's when the real healing can begin. And again, whether it's childhood trauma, it's depression, it's anxiety, whatever it is, once you're able to understand why you feel the way that you feel, that's when you can really start to work through it and start to find your own healing journey.
Okay. Well, so a couple questions from that. First of all, man, I don't even know, is sorry the right thing to say for what you've gone through? That's
yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, I think with survivors of trauma, whenever somebody hears it for the first time, they usually will say, "I'm so sorry, I feel so bad that you had to go through that." And yeah, that's fine. It's okay. I mean, because we understand, what we went through, and we also understand that not everybody understands that, really. I mean, not to really make a play on words, but we understand what we went through, but we also learn to understand that not everybody else can
Sure.
come from it from that perspective.
Right.
So yeah.
And I think that's true through all mental illness. I mean,
Absolutely.
unless,
Yeah.
and even within, like myself with major depressive disorder, if I meet someone else with major depressive disorder, I wouldn't presume to know what they're going through,
Right.
Because everybody is so different, and everything affects everybody so differently.
Exactly.
And I was curious about your use of the word suppressed when you said you were suppressing sexual abuse for 30 some odd years. Mm-hmm. But then you went on to say that, you talked about it maybe a little bit, you thought about it. So like you're suppressing it as far as, like belittling the importance of it, or was it?
No, pretty much just ignoring it.
Okay.
Like I when I first was starting to work through this, and I wrote about it a couple of times on my blog, and I might have done a podcast about it. Mm-hmm. But I kind of made the analogy, so to speak, or the metaphor of after it happened, and like once I got to about 17 or 18, that's when I decided I was going to take my life back. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to get bullied anymore. I'm not going to think about being abused as a child. I'm not going to worry about what my mother did and the way she treated me and all this and that. Like, yeah. I'm 17. Here I come, world. I'm taking my life back. And from then on, from about 16, 17, up until 41-ish, maybe even longer, earlier. But I pretty much said, I'm not going to deal with it. I ignored it. I stuffed it in like a shoebox and pushed it to the bottom of the closet in my mind. I piled it up with old laundry.
Wow.
So, I pretty much just ignored it. And then if it did come up, I would then push it aside, not deal with it, somehow rationalize that it wasn't a big deal anymore, that it wasn't affecting me. I just had to get over it. All the things that, of course, you should never do and people should never tell you to do. I was doing it to myself because I didn't want to deal with the fact that, I had all this trauma and that, it was affecting my life in so many ways that I didn't even realize. And, so yeah, it was pretty much just pretend it didn't happen. And if it did happen, push it back down in that shoebox and throw more old laundry on top of it.
Wow. Okay. So another question with the PTSD. Mm-hmm. So when I think of it stereotypically as PTSD, and we'll go with the military folks, they're, 10 years home from the war, they hear a car backfire, and all of a sudden they're back in Afghanistan in their head. Is that a way that you experience PTSD, or is it more of an ongoing thing for you?
Well, I tell you, like when I first started my healing journey, as I like to call it, and as like a lot of times we refer to it as an advocate, as your healing journey. For me, my PTSD manifested itself mainly with flashbacks and triggers, loneliness, isolation, nightmares, detachment. I mean, all kinds of different things. I mean, obviously that's how it manifested itself. Mm-hmm. For me, whenever I would get the worst of it, if I were to experience a flashback mm-hmm. or come across something that was triggering, it would take me back to when the abuse was actually happening. For example, certain smells would remind me of the rooms that I was in.
Yeah.
Certain types of furniture and fabric styles would remind me of the couch and the chair that was there. A smell of like a musty type of smell would take me back. Certain types of like drinking glasses of all things would remind me of this, of what happened. The smell of, like old lawnmower gasoline. Would take me back to the shed. That was part of it. Like, so it was really during a flashback is when I would literally get stuck feeling like I was back in the middle of the abuse all over again. Really? And the trigger wouldn't always send me into a flashback, but it would cause me to pause. I would get very, very hyper vigilant. My hands would start to sweat. My hands would get clammy. I would get really nervous. I would feel nauseous, like sick to my stomach. Things like that were stuff that would take me back to the particular moment. I can remember having flashbacks where I would literally be frozen, stuck, like stuck, standing still, completely mm-hmm. frozen for several minutes. like
Really?
unable to move, and the visions in my head of various different types of things that had happened would just play over and over, and then they would just either randomly stop for no reason, or I would be able to find a way to ground myself and pull myself out of it, once I learned about how to do that.
Sure.
But initially, yeah, I would get stuck back in the mode of being abused again at the height of the flashbacks, it was about 6 times a week every morning for 4 months straight.
Wow.
Yeah. And then after that, once I started to learn some grounding skills and some other strategies and stuff, then they kind of died off, and then it was 4 times a week. Then it was 3 times a week. Then it was twice a week. Then it was once a week. Now it's once every couple of months. Maybe I get one.
Wow. Okay. So that's great then. So, okay. So that leads me to my next question is, so you're on this journey, your path to better mental health. So what in your experiences, what have you found to be the most helpful? And I know there's, it's a whole cascade of things that help out, but, like I said, I'm a half-hour show here, so I don't want to, get into every little thing, but, maybe like 2 or 3 different things. Is it, is it a medication that you were able to get on? Is it talk therapy? Is it something else? Is it,
well, for one thing, yes, talk therapy or dialogue therapy, that helped tremendously. Learning about dialectical behavioral therapy or DBT skills, that helped a lot, obviously, which I learned in therapy, but also, writing and blogging, like writing out my stuff, like even, you don't have to write a blog. I mean, just, start a journal,
right.
And, just get yourself a spiral notebook or start a little free journal online somewhere and just start writing. And, if you enjoy writing, you don't have to be a professional writer or author or blogger. You just start writing out your thoughts, and there's tremendous healing in getting out your thoughts, your emotions, your frustrations, everything that you feel out on paper or out on a computer screen somewhere. So writing has been huge. As I said, talk therapy and reaching out for the support of others. Like, I take part in a weekly chat of trauma survivors, which is every Monday night. And it's online for about 90 minutes every Monday night from 9 to 10:30 Eastern time. Wow. And, we basically we have somebody who will share, and everybody talks about it, and we swap stories and ideas and thoughts, and we support each other. And so those 3 things have been really instrumental in my healing, in very important ways and in very unique ways, as, especially, like I said, reaching out for the support of others and feeling like you're not alone has been absolutely huge, just huge, because when you live with some type of mental health challenge, one of the most, one of the things that you normally default to is isolation and being
right.
and feeling, like nobody understands. And once you realize that people do understand and there's help out there, and, you can do, mental health, or you can do like crisis chat lines and supports and text lines, and it's like 24 hours a day now. There's always somebody online somewhere who's willing to talk with you and just share and listen, and that's tremendously helpful.
Yeah, that's all good stuff. And I know you mentioned the journal, and that's actually how my show got started, is that I enjoy writing to a certain extent, but I really hate what I've written. And so throughout my life, I've tried, starting so many different, like the internet is littered with blogs that I have started. Right. Journals, notebooks,
right.
Litter the world. Cause I'd write something, go back and read it and say, well, what is this garbage? And so then I thought, well, let me try just speaking it. I've done some podcasts before with friends of mine, so it wasn't new to me. And that's how this show got started. And I kind of walk the line between kind of putting stuff out for listeners as well as kind of audio journaling for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean that's how Surviving My Past got started. I had a little online free journal. I think it was over in Penzu. And, okay. I just started writing.
Yep.
And it was private just for me. Like I wasn't publishing it. And I did that for several months. And I'm like, you know what? This, and it wasn't like anything coherent. It was more just random thoughts and, a poem here and there, or just, a frustration or venting. And then, like you, I was doing podcasts before. I had been a sports writer for some NFL fan sites, and
Oh,
I'd
wow.
done podcasts before for NFL fan sites. So I had experience in it. And I'm like, well, I did it before in this other world, so to speak. So let me try my hand at this. And that's when it really just took off.
Yeah, do you remember your first email that you got from somebody?
I do.
Yeah, I do too.
I absolutely do. Yep. And I have it saved right now. It's the first time anybody ever emailed me and told me, essentially what you and I were talking about earlier of, you're saying what's in my head. You're understanding what I'm saying. You're a guy speaking out. Thank you for doing this, that type of thing. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about your podcast just for a few minutes. Now we mentioned it, and it's phenomenally produced, man. Your use of music and the sound quality is amazing. So kudos to you for all that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
So we got through how you started it, right? You started just kind of your own thoughts. Let's put something out there. But how did you see it grow? Tell me about that, and to where it is now, and maybe where you see it going.
Well, yeah, initially, as I said, I had some experience podcasting for sports-related topics. So, essentially all I did was, and especially in the early episodes when it was just me talking, I basically just got myself some free software, got myself a headset and a mic, and started talking.
Yep.
And I was just sharing about what I felt like, a day in the life of somebody who dissociates. So how, why anxiety is bothering me today. Man, I feel depressed today. Or, I had a win doing this and that and the other thing today. And it's really just covering all sorts of the challenges that I dealt with and the struggles and the questions that I had and the stuff that I didn't have answers to, and the research that I was doing and the books that I was reading. So I basically just get on and talk for 20, 30 minutes, load it up there. And, I started putting out on social media, and people started listening, and I'm like, wow. So, then I started thinking about, well, maybe, I could talk to some special guests every now and then. So I literally started going through my social media timeline, looking for people who, I felt a real connection with, people who perhaps were authors or coaches or psychologists or whatever, somebody who I felt could offer something to, not only to me, but to everybody that was listening. And I just started sending out emails all over the place and asking them if these guests would want to be on my show. Yeah. And that's really how it started. And so what started out as me just basically talking and sharing my thoughts has blossomed into me having special guests every week now. And, as I said, it's everybody from, all walks of life. I've interviewed people from Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Canada, the U.S., Australia, just all kinds of amazing people with amazing stories, entrepreneurs, businessmen and women, everyday survivors, authors, whoever. So it's really just it's a place where you can come and listen and feel encouraged. It's a safe space where there's no shame, there's no judgment. It's really it's the place where it's grown to not just my thoughts, but the thoughts of other people who have been through similar types of things that I have been, and topics that I talk about on the blog. And so I really enjoy doing it. I love talking to people on there and just really hearing their story and asking them the questions that really just fire them up and get them excited and passionate. And they're talking about we know what they've been through and how they've survived and how they're helping people. And it's unbelievably exciting to talk to people and hear their story, and then to put it out there in a podcast form and, actually have people want to listen to it, which is amazing.
Yeah, I really like your show a lot. I know early on, I think I found you. I was doing an iTunes search or internet search for depression podcasts or something. And I think depression was in your tag or something. Yep. And when I started listening, I really wasn't in a place where I didn't realize it, but I wasn't in a place where I could listen to other people's shows. All right. So I kind of let it go. I listened to probably 4 or 5. I think you did something that was like mobile musings or something.
Yes.
That was?
Yeah. Yep.
And then I just kind of put it on the shelf. And like I said, I listened to 4 or 5 of your more recent ones while I was out driving to see the eclipse the other day. And really I'm impressed with the work that you're doing, and just really the folks that you're getting on there is just really impressive. So
Yeah, yeah.
thanks for all that work, man.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the Mobile Musings is like a little mini series that I do, which I haven't done one of those in a couple of months.
Hmm.
But that's really just literally I'm recording through my iPhone as I'm driving, and I'm
Yep.
just sharing something that's on my mind, and it's usually like no more than 5 or 7 minutes. But yeah, I have a couple of those waiting in the wings that I haven't loaded up yet that I should get to pretty soon. But yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, the Mobile Musings, that's part of the whole surviving my podcast gig.
Yeah. Yeah. I've tried those. I have like a rapid rambling,
Uh-huh.
and what I tried doing a pay it forward thing
Right.
where I would do like hey, this is something that I did today that was good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Kind of like puff my chest, but also, show folks, hey, there's good things going on. And I think I just kind of gave up on them because I didn't get any real reaction out of them. But those kind of things are fun in the show, right? Kind of breaks it up a little bit, gets something put out.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I tell you something else that really came about as a result of the podcast is I do about every month and a half I get together with two other guys and we have this thing called the Megacast.
The Megacast, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's myself, my buddy Wes, and my buddy Mike, who's in the UK. And Wes is out in Arizona. And, we get together every month and a half or so, and it's just three guys talking about mental health stuff, and that's really fun, and that gets a lot of positive reaction from people, just three guys sitting around talking about what they struggle with and all that kind of stuff. So it's really there's been a lot of unique doors and awesome guests that have been opened up since I started that I'm just eternally grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. So last thing, and then I'll let you go. I know you're pretty busy right now with doing some training to be a life coach. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay,
I'm in the midst of getting my certification to be a life transition and recovery coach. And that will be done the end of September of this year, 2017. And then, I have the finals and stuff to take. But once that's done, I will be transitioning out of my current job, that I've been at for 16 years now, almost 17 years.
Okay.
In computers as an engineer and transitioning into this role of helping others who are going through major life transitions, people who are trying to work through past trauma, challenges and struggles and things of their past. And I've always worked in computers my whole life. It's just kind of what I did because that's what I thought I was supposed to do growing up.
Yeah.
Especially being a child of the 80s, once I graduated and stuff, computers were just starting to come into the world and everybody's like, yeah, get into computers, you always have a job, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I'll go do that. And it's never been emotionally fulfilling. And while I am grateful for the opportunities that it's given me, I know that now at 45, I have found the true calling that I know I was meant to be, and the reason I was put on this planet was to help other people in the way that I was helped. And so, I'm looking to open up my coaching practice in the late fall of this year, and really start working with people, virtually, online, and also one-on-one locally here of just helping them overcome the things that hold them back in life, the struggles, the negative mindsets, the negative thinking, anything that they feel like they need an advocate for, somebody who's going to be on their side, somebody who can walk them through and give them a objective opinion, somebody who understands what it means to go through life transitions of divorce and new relationships and career changes and trauma recovery, everything that goes along with that. Those are the people that I'll be working with, and that's really what I'm excited to do. So it's a busy time in my life, yes, but it's an exciting time with a lot of transition and change in a very good way.
Now, there's a lot of education and there's, testing at the end. So does this end up qualifying you as a mental health professional? Or no, just short of that maybe? Or
well, yeah, my official title will be Certified Life Transition and Recovery Coach. So I guess it depends on your term of mental health professional, really. I'll be working a lot with trauma survivors, but I'll also be working with men and women who are just, experiencing major life transitions, perhaps new career change, family changes, a big move, something anything that causes you to maybe doubt the direction or, kind of question where you should go or how you should start and all that type of thing. So I will be working with a lot of survivors. Absolutely. That's my niche. That's something that I am passionate about. But I'll also be working with lots of people who aren't survivors as well. So I don't know if I'll call myself a mental health professional per se, but I am most definitely trauma informed, which is a big thing. Whether it's a coach, therapist, counselor, whatever, being trauma informed with someone who's been through some type of trauma or lives with some type of mental health challenge is a gigantic benefit. And really, that professional who has that type of knowledge can really help the clients understand what they feel and why they feel and how they can begin to work through it. I'm proud of the fact that I am trauma informed in that I'll be able to help a lot of people because I've been through a lot of the stuff that they're going through. So.
Okay. So on your website, did I see you've got up in the title bar, you've got a work with me? Is that you're kind of like dipping your toe in?
That's exactly what it is. Yep. Okay. Yeah. My blog is always going to be Surviving My Past. That's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. But I am working on a new website, which will be the coaching website. So right now, if you go to that Work With Me, or there's a little there's a box below the banner up near the top that says Life Transition and Recovery Coaching. And right now, that's just like a landing page with a sign-up form and some basic information.
Yep.
The new coaching website is going to be called Beyond Your Past. And
nice.
That's going to be launching late October, early November of 2017. So once I launch it, those links will change. But for right now, if you want some information about what I'm going to be doing and, what a coach is and if one's right for you or anything like that, just go ahead and click on it, read through the info, enter in your email, and that's all there is to it. I won't spam you. I won't sell your information. You don't got to worry about that because I hate spam. So, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah, check it out. And if you want to know more, plus if you just have a question, you can always email me. There's contact forms on Surviving My Past, and I will always reply back within 24 hours.
Nice. That's all fantastic stuff, man.
Cool.
So any nuggets of advice to send out to my listeners, or any most profound thing that you've heard in your journey, anything like that?
And thanks, man, for the opportunity of being on your show. It's an honor, and I'm glad that we were able to connect. I'm looking forward to having you on my show in the future.
That'd be great. I can't wait for that.
Absolutely. I think nuggets of wisdom, I don't really know. I would really tell you that, whether you're a trauma survivor or not, if you're living with any type of mental health challenge, depression, anxiety, whatever it is that you live with, the worst feeling in the world is that feeling of being alone and feeling isolated and feeling like nobody understands. And the fact is that there are tons of people that understand. Professionals, everyday people who just listen and want to help you, and people who want to hear your story, and people who are willing to, just interact with you and help you feel not alone. So if there's one thing I could reach out to anybody is to always understand that even in the deepest, darkest times of you feeling like there's no hope and that there's no reason to get out of the house, to do anything, to interact with anybody, there's always a reason. There's always hope out there. All you have to do is just take one little step forward, a little bit at a time, and start to embrace the help that's out there. And there's a world of healing and a world of possibilities out there, no matter what you're dealing with every day. So don't ever give up on yourself. That's probably the biggest thing I would leave with people, no matter what you're struggling with.
Yeah, great stuff, man. Thank you. Thanks, Matt. So much thanks to you for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Right on, man. My pleasure. Anytime, dude.
All right. Thanks, man.
Right on.